one of the things that I always like to point out, the adoption rate within this type of solution is extremely high. It's as close to 100% as we could hope for it to be. It's around 99.8% across all of our clients. If you compare that to an app-based solution, those app-based solutions at their peaks are generally around 55 to 60%. And so your adoption rate is much higher here. If you think about an app-based solution, the challenges that it has to compete with on an individual's device. I think the most recent study I saw, 4%, or excuse me, 4 apps within a user's phone are used 90% of the time, with the remaining apps on that phone for an individual used around 10% of the time. If you think about the landscape when you're looking at the real estate on that individual's device, it's really hard to demand attention with an app-based solution. They have to have the memory available on those devices. They also have to update those apps when updates get pushed out. Really trying to demand that attention on an employer-based app is challenging. And so text messaging, we found, is just far and away the best way to keep that communication stream up with employees.
So first off, 99.8% is just an incredible adoption rate from an employee base. I want to actually talk about adoption from managers or management,
Sure.
though, because I think that is one hurdle that is so important in the implementation of an application like this.
Yep.
So many organizations, especially manufacturers, warehousers, they have a policy that does not allow for cell phone usage or device usage on their floor for safety reasons. So
Yep.
we absolutely can understand that. But I'm thinking about some of the things that management can do to make sure that they could still implement this and uphold their safety guidelines and not worry. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit? Like, how did you influence management on the adoption of this in their facilities?
That's a great question, Tracy, because not only is it a safety issue, it's also a distraction issue. Having devices on the floor. I mean, there are many, many facilities out there that just limit cell phone usage on the floor, even having it on the floor, because they know that the distraction that it creates trying to get work done throughout the day, and an individual is in the corner checking Facebook or what have you. We've all seen that, and so certainly those are challenges that you have to deal with. I'd say the great thing about this type of platform is, even if they do have those policies in place, it's not preventative for using this, because a lot of the community.
I'm going to show this, Justin. Most people are wearing these on the floor, right?
Yeah.
You see it?
Well, and I was going to say that the biggest things that we see, from an employee needing to have access, like a moment's access while working, is VTO. And so that's voluntary time off. When you're asking an employer to, or an employee to basically accept VTO, it can be throughout the workday. So you might be asking a certain amount of people saying, hey, would you be willing to leave the shift early today? And if so, they've got to be on their device to be able to accept that. And there can be some animosity around not being able to access their phone and someone else getting access to that shift before, or that VTO before they do. We really don't see that happen a lot. It's a big fear for employers, but we don't see it happening a lot, because throughout the day, there's typically breaks, lunch, that sort of thing. As you alluded to, a lot of people are wearing smartwatches now. So if they see something like that come through, text messaging comes through on the smartwatch, they can engage with it on the smartwatch. And so, that is typically not the adoption issue that we see around having individuals use their devices on the floor. It's more around the capacity for the management team to be able to engage with individuals on the platform. And so we see a lot of concern around, well, I just don't have time to manage this type of platform. And the great thing about this type of platform is it's self-managing. Now, there are two-way conversations that if you do want to take over, someone would have to have access to, but they can be handled by many people. So, you can have as many users on the admin portal as you like, so someone could always respond. And typically, those messages don't have to be responded to urgently. There are more questions that can be responded to, within, let's say, a 10 to 15-minute time frame. And most team members have the ability, most admin teams have the ability to do that. And the volume is not tremendous because, again, CASI's handling a lot of those issues before they reach that critical point. George, I wanted to circle back to your integration question earlier. One of the I think big challenges with communication systems is having to manage the contacts within those communication systems because they're just not set up really for employers. They're set up as generic outbound communication platforms. And let's be honest, most of the communication platforms that are text-based are marketing based platforms. And so to use them in an employer environment, you're kind of, I would say, misusing the platform a little bit. And so managing contacts can become very challenging. And one of the great things we've been able to do with CASI is we've been able to integrate with all the major HRIS systems, so the human resource management systems, to be able to pull that level of detail over. And then CASI, during the onboarding process, matches the individual to the person in the HRIS system. So when you onboard within the system, CASI will ask the individual's name. We also have the ability to ask for the employee's ID number if the employer prefers that. And then we instantly match that individual with the individual that's in the human resource management system. It's very seamless and it allows the employee to onboard rather than have some type of manual process to actually enter in the data to text that individual manually, which is really preventative in an employer type of environment.
Sure. So is that built into the platform, these major systems, so the integration to these major systems?
It is built into the platform, and depending on the level of engagement that employers want to have with us, it's available at kind of the different tiers. We have a lower level tier that just allows for small teams to come in and manage their employees, in which they can do uploads. So they can actually take that upload and they can do data matching through a little workforce process to upload it into the system. But at higher levels of engagement, connect directly to just about every HRIS system out there.
Great. And do you expose APIs so that, a company, if they had a development staff or IT staff, they could do integration with your platform?
That's a good question. We don't have an open API right now. We actually set up those individual connections as part of the implementation process for the employer. And so we are looking in the future to having an open system that will allow them to tie that directly in if they have a system that is outside of the HRIS systems we already work with. Most of them are pretty seamless, but there are some smaller, especially homegrown systems that they would need that open ability to do. And right now, we manage that internally.
Sure. But you have that upload capability, so I'm assuming you can upload CSV files or data fashion. So that's great.
Yeah, and they can do data matching within that upload system, so we can basically take any type of format within, as long as it's CVS, Excel, any labor format within those two types can be uploaded in the system. But yeah, I mean, if there's any other questions I could answer, I'd be happy to.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned early on is the use of AI. So I'm curious to know, how extensive you're using it or what areas of the application you use it. Obviously, it's a it's a hot topic, so be interested to see how you're leveraging that.
We leverage it in the communication between CASI and the individual. And so we use generative AI to
Okay.
basically manage those conversations. We use a combination between some internal code and some external code. There's some open source code that we use to manage those communications, but it gives us the ability to communicate in natural language with the employee, and also interpret meaning. And so when we're going through an implementation process, we'll get with an employer and we'll find out kind of the highest level pain points that they hear during communication, whether it's like, how much was my paycheck? How many hours did I work? All those different type of things. And then CASI can actually integrate with the HRIS systems and answer those dynamically. If it's something that's personal information protected, we can then, CASI then has the ability to deep link into those HRIS system portals that the employee would then sign into. So, for example, if it's something that we don't feel comfortable answering, um, CASI would provide the link to that portal so that they can go directly into it. We also do we do track communications to recommend specific topics that we need to create answers for. So because of the sensitive nature of communications between an employee and employer, CASI does not have the ability to just respond. One of the things that we've really done is we've limited the generative AI to only be able to respond to communications that are directly hard-coded into our system around FAQs.
So you've got a database behind the scenes, obviously, to store all this data. Is that something that a customer could access if they wanted to generate their own custom reports, or do you provide that facility within the app?
That's a great question. We actually do limit the reporting to specific reports that we already generate. So the reporting that an individual can pull within the app is based around communications that have occurred. So there's a historic level of record keeping on each individual's member profile within the app. So you can actually look at each individual member, look at every piece of communication they've ever had with CASI or with an individual on the admin side in that two-way chat. We also provide deliverability reporting within every message that goes out, especially within announcements or shift level detail. You do have reporting that shows who this message was delivered to, what was your deliverability percentage, so how many messages actually reached the intended target. And then you can actually drill down individually to see who did and who did not get that message and for what reason. So there's a lot of things we do to help our clients out with deliverability now that the carriers have these AI systems in place to block spam messaging. So we work with the clients to make sure that they're staying within those limitations that will trigger some of that AI message blocking that can happen at the carrier level. And so we provide that level of information so that they do have that data level insight. We also provide information around what their total population is of employees within the facility, how many people are actually onboarded into the system, so they can manage that at any given time, and they can do some activities if they need to increase engagement, or if they need to reduce the active personnel within the system for any reason. So there's a lot of reporting that they can't access, but there is some stuff that we do not let them access just from a security perspective that we can pull reports for that they don't have access to.
So Justin, I can see that there's probably a number of employers that would like to learn more. So in wrapping this up, what is the best way for them to reach out to you, and what would be the next steps?
Yeah, if anyone would be interested in taking a run through on a demo call, they could either get in touch with me My number's on the screen. It's 404-850-1703. They can go to our website and sign up through our website for a demo at getcasi.com, or they can email me directly at justin@getcasi.com.
And I just want to give a testimonial in closing. I had a client challenge and they were trying to improve efficiencies with their labor planning. And this was a great solution. Reached out to your team and things couldn't have gone better. You worked with this employer, you customized the solution specifically to them, and they received outstanding results. So firsthand testimonial, if you're interested in improving your staffing, reach out to Justin in many ways. He and his team can support you.